Hi, I'm Lara, your connection coach. Have you ever felt lonely? In a world that feels increasingly divided, it is more important than ever to find ways to connect with others. Loneliness is a common experience, but it doesn't have to be a permanent one. On the Bliss Republic podcast, we explore all the ways we connect with each other and discuss the benefit of having strong relationships. We believe that the key to overcoming loneliness is connection. My guests come from all walks of life and will hear about their unique experience with connection. Whether you're looking to deepen your existing relationships, build new ones, or simply feel more connected to the world around you, the Bliss Republic podcast is for you. Hello, beautiful Bliss Republic. We are doing the 10th episode of the Bliss Republic podcast, and I had asked you guys what you would like me to dedicate every 10th episode to. And I had some really good ideas, and I decided to do something completely spontaneous. So I'm at a friend's place and I found the Where Should We Begin cards by Esther Perel. So I am going to go into the questions of 10 cards and relate to the question experience-wise. All right. And then later we can go into a little bit more about myself. So stay with me. Okay. Obviously, I'm going to shuffle because you don't want any old energies in here. Ooh, one card popped out. Lately, I've been getting better at, pulling myself out of a negative mind into a positive mindset. And that's all to do with something that I'm going to dive into in one of my upcoming episodes with someone very special who is going to join me for one of the next episodes from America. And we're going to dive into this because there is something about my story where mindset has played a fundamental role of actually keeping me alive. Now, professionally speaking, your mindset dictates how you're playing and experiencing your life. If you have programmed yourself to look for the negative in everything, you will find the negative in everything and you will attract the negative out of everything. If you program your mind to look for the good in everything and everyone, although that's not often the case, people take advantage. In everything, in every situation, if you're the one looking for the solutions, you will be the one finding the solutions. So you can train and reprogram your mind to be on the good side of life. Second one, my favorite love story to tell. Everybody should have a love story to tell. And what I really like about the question is the spin on it, because if your mind is looking for the negative, the first thing that would come up answering this question would be, yes, but I only had negative relationships, right? Which is not the case for everyone, right? I had the most beautiful relationship moving in with someone when I was a student. We were so close. We were like best mates, and it was such a healthy, great time in my life. It's one of my first like serious relationships, and we did everything together. We conquered the world, right? So that's a personal one. I want to actually send this question out to you guys to think about your personal love stories. What's the best one? And how does it make you feel? Generally speaking, the best love story is one that I investigated this week is the one of the Beauty and the Beast. Disney. So it was actually a storyline taken out of the 1700s, which was a story to promote personality. It was a story for the women that were young, sent into marriage and were married to older men to help them to look for the good side of the coin. So it's about the perception of the mind to think about this way older man being the beast and spending a certain amount of time with a person to discover their personality. And although I'm not necessarily for arranged marriage, I do like the idea of finding the good in the character of someone that may not be your first choice. All right. The last time I was worried that I might be or become a bad parent. What a great question. Oof. So recently, I did an EMDR thing. I had a podcast guest come on who spoke about this. I heard it for the first time. So it kept coming up for me. And I was like, that's something I haven't tried. I'm curious. And as I manifest a lot of things, if you know me, the week after I had a friend reach out and said, I study this if you want to be my guinea pig. Yeah, let's have a go at it. And we didn't actually do the eye movement thing, but what we did do is a tapping on the arms, right? And because I've done a lot of healing and reprogramming and reconditioning myself over the last 20 years, it was like a thunderstorm going off in my head. And I connected the dots with a speed that was so rapid, asking myself, is it this? No. Is it this then? Okay, yes. So how does it make me feel? Is it solved? No, it's not. Okay, go back. What else was there? And it's like these questions that I was prompting myself through this experience. And I've never done anything that made me realize why I did what I did in the past and where my choices came from that quickly. It was so cool. One of the things, to come back to the question, that I realized is I'm still holding a subconscious fear of being married. So it might not necessarily be related. For some it is, for some it's not. For me it is, as I always saw myself as someone getting married and having kids and raising them in a family framework. Now, if I'm afraid of being married, what does that mean for me being a parent? Let's just assume I wasn't getting married and I was in a relationship with children. What am I role modeling to my children? So I'm showing them a model that is kind of more open than marriage, I guess. If I was to say, all right, I'm working on this sphere and I'm, as I always do, working on everything, I don't ever want to be held back in life. So if I was married and had children, maybe also I wouldn't be the best person. Maybe there would also be faults that I would commit to and things that I would be doing wrong. And maybe as a result, they may suffer. I think overthinking might be a big worry for me about being a good parent, because I want to be in the present moment with my children. If they say, hey, mommy, look, I want to do this, and look what I did at school, I want to be like, oh my God, you did this? Like, I don't want to be in my head. Yeah, that's a good one. What about you? What about you guys? Can you leave me a comment down below? Because I'm really, really curious. All right. The last time I pretended I wasn't crying. Ooh, a movie. I think I was watching Dune 2 and I was crying because those little shits in front of me were making so much noise, and I was crying because I was missing the movie. I'm just kidding. No, last time I pretended I wasn't crying. I never pretend I'm not crying. I actually think this is something really important to talk about. We were listening to a podcast yesterday about emotions of grief and dying, and how we so often believe, like we're in this mindset of believing that we should escape feeling our emotions, especially the bad ones, instead of believing that we should experience them wholeheartedly, fully. Pretending I wasn't crying, the whole question doesn't sit well with me, because I am a spiritual being having a human experience. Therefore, I want to experience the bad, the good, the everything, right? I'm like, I don't hold back. When I need to cry, I just open the floodgates, right? Bring some tissues. So that's my take on pretending not to cry. Are there moments where you should pretend not to cry? I believe there are. I actually believe there are. Hold up. We should talk about this. I believe there are situations when you're being overtaken by emotions and you're actually trying to hold space for someone else who is really going through a much shittier time than you. I believe it's good to have some sort of tool handy where you can pull yourself out of your state, snap out of it, and be like, I'm going to do my crying later on, but right now, I'm going to show up for this person. And I'm going to hold space so they can have the experience of the pain that they need to engage with. Yeah. Ooh, I think I had a bit of a tear a week ago. It was one of my best friend's wedding. One of the best weddings I ever been to. It was so authentic. I loved everything about it. It was so them, as a couple. And that's what made it so special. They didn't bend over backwards for anyone else. Someone said, you can't have margaritas on your wedding. And she's like, watch me. And I love that about her. She is just like, my wedding, my rules, right? Love it. All right, we're coming to question number 5. The last time I got unreasonably upset. I can't believe I'm telling you guys this. It was in a dream. I was dreaming I had a double date. And the guy, we got in a conversation. We were eating cheeseburgers. So my cheeseburger was like falling apart, when they don't really put it together. And the last bite of meat landed on my plate. I was like, oh, great, I'm going to eat all the other things and I'm saving it because it's the best part. He took his fork and stepped it in the meat and ate my last piece of meat from my cheeseburger in my dream. I was so upset. I was so upset. Anyway, I'm not telling you the rest of this dream. But jokes aside, we can get triggered, right? It's so good to know your triggers. It's so good to have that self-awareness to be like, and it's really the awareness, not only over your thoughts, but your emotions. And if you don't know how to describe your emotions and know what you're feeling actually and how to distinct in words what you're feeling, then you're not clear on why you're being triggered. Because it usually goes like this, right? Well, I am so upset at you. Whoa, you actually didn't do anything wrong. Why am I upset? And then you go into, wow, I really feel frustrated, or I feel angry and I feel unseen right now. And that's because someone else has done something similar to me. And that reminds me of that. So my system is unnecessarily and unreasonably getting upset because of an emotion I was still holding and haven't released of something that you didn't do. Therefore, I'm getting upset now. And that's my work to do. And I actually wasn't aware I'm still holding this. So, being triggered, especially in relationships, that's where your gold is hidden, right? That's your work. If someone triggers you, thank them and be like, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know I was doing that, right? An ex-boyfriend of mine, he's like, every single time you pour a drink, you never ask me if I want one. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's a bit different, but he had reason to be triggered. And I was like, interesting. So when I was at home in Germany, and I woke up at my mom's place, I was like, I want a coffee. It's cold. And she made a coffee. And I went into the kitchen. She was already up for like an hour or so. I went into the kitchen and there was exactly 1 cup of coffee left. Guess what happened? Okay, you're learning a lot about my relationship to food today. She poured the last bit of coffee in her mug and walked away without considering me. And I was like, this is where it comes from. This is why, like subconsciously, you wouldn't believe all the stuff we pick up as children. We're little sponges. We're so sensitive to things. We, like monkey see, monkey do. But children trying to make sense of the world, right? They copy paste what they see, which comes back to my question of, what do I think makes me worried about being a good parent? It's almost like householding, where I want to be sure that I'm not passing on to those ones, those little ones that I love most, my own shit, my stuff that has been passed on, ends with me. No way. They will receive understanding, love, and patience, and also be challenged to be on their own feet, but not gonna make them feel inferior because of something that I don't feel good about. That's like having expectations towards an adult that you shouldn't have to kids. They're kids. They will always adapt to their environment. So, don't ever get unreasonably upset for your children. If you get upset at your children, let them know why. So they can put one and one together. There's nothing worse than traumatizing your children because of shit that you don't even know why you are reacting the way. Anyway, food for thought. Last time I got caught, something really bad happened about 2 weeks ago. I still can't believe that happened. My friend and helper, the police. I got caught not wearing a seatbelt. If you know me, I'm like the biggest mommy bear. When you get into my car, I'll tell you, buckle up. It's gonna be a ride. But I never drive without a seatbelt. That's not me. But they were out hunting. It was Anzac weekend on a Saturday. I came back from a surf and I drove. I don't know if you ever done it. If you have a wetsuit and you surf, and I put it on the side of my car above the mirror to dry, but then I sometimes leave driving and drive off with it still being there. So by the time I realized, that might be a driving hazard, I better pull over, unclip my seatbelt, and pull that thing in. And I put it in, and I drove off and put my seatbelt back on. And in the moment I was reaching for my seatbelt, that bloody policeman was standing right there, waiting for me to drive off, and got me a ticket. That's not reasonable, is it? I can't, yeah, okay, you want your money, but friend and helper, that's one reason why you shouldn't trust the police. All right. Did I just say that? I don't want to program you guys, but that wasn't cool. So I got caught for trying to do the right thing. Anyway, I guess that's my thing to figure out with authority. Connection-wise, however, the last time I got caught, I want to talk about lies. I want to talk about hiding things from your partner in relationships, in friendships, at work. What makes us do things? It's often related to shame. It's often related to us thinking that we will suffer a different consequence if someone knows something. The truth always comes out. And I don't know why sometimes we do these things. I try not to. I try to avoid having the confrontation just by being honest up front, even if sometimes it's not great, right? But I personally find it's better this way. Put the cards on the table. Let's figure it out. If someone really likes you and wants to be in this friendship, relationship, work relation with you, they will appreciate that. They won't appreciate having to catch you out on it, because that shows that you don't trust them, which would make them not want to trust you, because that's how trust works. So it's something you give to create it. The worst date I've ever been on. Okay, I can tell because it was in one of my hideous times where I was on the apps. And the guy was clearly out for one thing and I wasn't. And he was so nervous though. I don't know. It was an energetic thing. I think because of his intention, he probably could tell this wasn't gonna go well. I don't know, but he came 2 hours late. He was kind of saying, "No, let's just play by ear," kind of thing. And I was like, "Yeah, let's just play cool, right? Let's cool." And it was in my times where I didn't really consider working on my self-worth. Well, that's a different thing now. If you show up 2 hours later, you don't have a date with me. This guy was like, "All right, I'm just gonna get us some drinks." And I was like, "Okay, well, do you want to ask me maybe what I want? Is this a conversation? How do I have am I being considered?" Anyway, he showed up with 2 cans of beer. I was like, "I don't want to drink this," but I was sipping away, and I was like, "Yeah, we'll just not make a big deal out of it." And I just could not have a conversation with him. Every time we started picking up a part of the conversation, and I was trying to get to know him better, he would try to back out of the conversation. And being like, "So what are your plans for the rest of the night?" And it was just the hardest ping pong ever. And it was the only time to say, hey, I'm not going to meet you again. I appreciate the evening, but I'm not going to see you again. I'm sorry. That was that. How good is clarity though? Let's not have someone in a gray zone, right? Like, have a date, say it as it is. Don't be hurtful, don't be mean, but clarity is such a big piece of maturity. Okay. Oh. I got a good question here. The last time I felt free, I have been, if you know me, I've been living in my van for the last year. I went through financial hardship, and the last time I felt free was in September 2022, before I took on the job that then sent me into financial hardship. And I was in between jobs, and I went on a surf trip to Bali by myself to progress my surfing. And it was my birthday, and the fishermen had prepared a local barbecue on the beach for my birthday. And it was such a wild, beautiful experience. I later on, after that surf camp, I took my scooter just on a whim over to Sumbawa, and I was unseen in the middle of two islands hopping. I ended up staying in a resort where I was the only guest, sleeping under the stars. And there was no other person for miles. Isn't it odd how the opposite of people is what I associate with freedom? Now, if you know my programs and you've been following a little bit of my connection coaching work, you saw that I launched an online course, which is all about using your loneliness to become a person worth finding. Now, this is all about personal standards. It's about elevating yourself, your spirit, really tackling the things that will hold you back to feel free. And I'm highlighting the importance of solitude. To me, solitude is a big part of freedom. And maintaining each other's solitude within a relationship is a huge gift to another, because in our fast-paced world, we get so distracted from actually processing emotions and thoughts. That's what we do in our solitude. We go inward and we take a step back from this beautiful social bubble we've created to understand, am I still in integrity with myself? Do I need to change the route here or there? Am I in alignment with my values, my goals, and my soul? Because if I'm not, and I continue on this path without changing anything, the consequence is suffering. And that's where, especially a lot of males, if I might take the word for you, end up feeling caught and imprisoned in a relationship where they feel they've lost a sense of freedom, because there's never any time and space to have that check-in on, where am I at? How do I fit in this picture? Am I still the one holding the compass for everyone else? Am I still the one directing? It's so important for men to have that check-in. And for women, you may be surprised, women, it is so good to come back to your female and preserve and come back to your flow in solitude. So just to give you a few little insights, check out the connection coach on my website. It's available, it's self-paced, it's available for $199. And it's, if you are going through a breakup or you are afraid of being lonely forever, take this as your opportunity. Take on the connection code as your project and become someone worth finding. Okay, we got two more cards. A time when I felt on top of the world. That was in 2015 when I had finished my yoga teacher training, and I just finished a 3-month term in Hawaii, and I moved to Australia. So I was just like, really? doing the whole wealth thing. And I didn't have even a job to go to, but I felt on top of the world because I was embracing my own choices. This is about being in alignment with yourself. If you live in someone else's dream, you won't feel on top of the world. You won't feel on top of your world. So it is very important to ask yourself who you are and to know who you are. And you can only know that by knowing who you are not. And we make life experiences and we get better at this. The older you get, the less you take crap because you know, I've done that before. No, not for me. Thank you. Back off. That's what I like about getting older. You just become so good in seeing through other people's bullshit. A time when I felt on top of the world. As I'm a female and I'm also a very relational being, I always I find freedom in a relationship if I can be myself in a relationship. So when you fall in love, you always feel on top of the world because you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm seen by this person. But you know what's even more interesting? It's actually when you fall in love, you don't care how much attention you get from the other person in the first weeks. You care about how you can serve them, what you can do for them, how much you can pay attention to them. And that's the beauty of falling in love. And I know nowadays we all talk about sticking to your boundaries. And yes, you should. And also dance within the boundaries and the room for getting to know someone, right? I know I have a very high standard that sometimes tends to make me close to new experiences. So if you're like me, you may want to give it more time to have an experience that is without expectation and take your own expectations towards having an expectation out of that. So what I mean by that, instead of saying, yeah, but this person is like, they don't have this and that's what I'm looking for, invest a little, see what happens. And then you enjoy the experience. You don't make it about the person being the ultimate goal. You make it about the experience being the ultimate goal. Somebody once said to me, you deserve to have a good date. And that is about being present with the moment for the sake of the beautiful moment and the date you're at. You know, especially nowadays with all the apps, I've seen people on dates where I'm like, ooh, she's not into it. And you can tell. If you're on a date and you're not enjoying the other person, that's because you have an expectation of how it is going to be. Enjoy yourself, enjoy the date. Don't make it about the other person, right? Back to a time when I felt on top of the world. I always feel this question is a bit predetermined by what our society thinks is on top of the world. It's always related for me to when was the last time I had things going for me. But maybe this question can also mean a time when I was just good with myself and it didn't take anything going for me, right? And it's just clear that I'm a good person. I like myself. I like the decisions I make. I like that I tell other people to bugger off when they don't have my best interest at heart. Yeah. How about making it about, I like the person I'm becoming. I like how I'm finally holding space for myself when I used to have people walk all over me. The learnings. Last question. Better be a good one. A time I admitted I was wrong. Growing up, I observed my parents never saying sorry to each other or to us. Therefore, I learned to always blame my environment. And I had to learn from my friends to say, I fucked up. I'm sorry. This was my mistake. The more you learn how to do it, the more often you actually do it. And I make mistakes all the time. And I no longer am imprisoned by the concept of being right because I deny myself the experience of saying I was wrong. And it's actually very freeing. The moment it clicks and the moment you have the courage to communicate it and get it out and put it in someone else's face to say, it was my mistake, I fucked up. It's a very freeing experience. And I honestly like doing it when it's out of integrity and when I have taken the time to reflect that I was wrong. I don't want to take on unnecessary mistakes that deflate my self-worth, because that would be walking over myself and the integrity to myself. What are times when we should admit that we were wrong? Number one, when someone else gets hurt by your actions. Number two, when you get hurt by not admitting that you were wrong. Long term, the truth always catches up with you. And if you've seen some of my posts recently, I spoke about the heart, and your heart holds a frequency, it holds information. I just recently learned that it holds a neurological system as well. So it stores memory. And every time you lie, you put yourself in an untrue frequency. Every time you don't clean up a mess that you've caused, you hold a bad frequency. And this is why people start feeling issues with their health, because they are not honest with themselves and they hold all these untrue frequencies in their heart that their body is trying to figure out. And you take on a persona, and your body will always try to adapt to who you think you are. Now, if you think of yourself that you are a person who values integrity and you lie, then there's a disalignment with what your body thinks it is and the information you now feed into your heart. And that will ultimately cause disease in your body. So always be honest and admit when you're wrong. And recognize when you reflect about, I should apologize, think about the long-term indication. And if you can have a conversation up front, hey, there's something I need to talk to you about. Get it out of the way. You don't have to lie, right? You have to have an uncomfortable conversation. Not a lot of people know how to have an uncomfortable conversation. That's where you mature. That's where I had to mature, to not run away and hide and think that not having the conversation will protect me. It's the biggest bullshit I told myself for so long. And it actually does the opposite. I can't protect myself from life. Life flows through me. Experiences flow through me. And mistakes will be made. And I will hurt people with my actions. But I need to be true to myself. I need to be true to when I'm out of integrity, to myself and others. And if I'm hurting people along the way because I am out of integrity with them, then I need to have a conversation. Within that, you need to distinct whether the importance of holding that integrity will or will not have any sacrifice onto the true integrity with yourself. And I'll tell you why that is. Let's believe that your inner child is like a child. And it always listens, it always observes. What's she doing next? And think of it as monkey see, monkey do, right? Marissa Peer speaks about that. Your body always listens to your words. Words are so powerful. And they hold a frequency. And it's interesting in conversation, sometimes people say, yeah, but it doesn't matter if I say it or not. It's not going to have an impact. I don't think that. I actually believe you never know when it will have an impact. Powerful words are a frequency left with another person that will hit them eventually one day when they're ready to hear them. And the subconscious will unlock it at the right time that you said that to them, hopefully out of best interest. But it is always, 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 always Better to say things and get them off your chest than holding back. This is communication skills. And so many people think that it's about learning how to do things in the best way. But sometimes you need to, after walking barefoot for an entire summer, put on shoes, and it will feel wrong. That's what it's like learning communication skills and having those difficult conversations for the first time. Sometimes getting good at having conversations means you need to do things that are uncomfortable for the first time. It means that you have to lean into something that you don't know what it's going to feel like, and that is uncomfortable. That's where your courage comes in. And so a lot of people believe communication skills are all about saying something complex in a way that is easy and very digestible to the other person. Sometimes it's taking off the shoe and throwing it at them. And it's out. And sometimes that's better than not having it out. And it will get better every time you practice. But the reason why a lot of people think their relationship fails is because of communication. Often we condition each other to not communicate well anymore. And I've made that experience where someone had shut me down saying, "You can keep your opinion to yourself." It made me not want to have a conversation with them anymore at all. It was like walking on eggshells. Words are powerful. So use them wisely. Use them constructively. Always invite to a conversation. If you think about communication being the single most important thing in a relationship, then what should that look like? It should always be open. It's a door that should always be open. The moment you close that door, it may not open again. Don't condition the other side to not communicate to you. What does that look like? Don't make them feel like there's something they can't turn to you for, right? Always let them come to you with whatever it is. And then you get to decide, well, this is something I can help you with or something I can't help you with. You don't get to say, don't come to me with that. In that moment, you're teaching them there's a part in them that you're rejecting. There's a part in them that you don't hold safe. There's a part in them that can't be fully expressed, and they will not come back with that part to you asking to look after it. Communication is an invitation to look at something together. When someone comes to you with something they want to talk about, if you don't have time in that moment, schedule some time. Make space and room for it. If it's something you don't want to talk with them about, you genuinely have no capacity to talk with them about, which means that's mirror work. That is somewhere within you that's not open. You can always ask yourself, what's the real reason why I don't want to talk with them about this? It makes me anxious because the conversation doesn't change, because I've always tried and I can't help them. If that's the case, you help them by listening to them, right? Sometimes communication is about nothing else but validating someone's feelings, validating their thoughts, validating what they are saying. And it's about being seen and cared for. If someone says something to you that they're concerned about, and you want to start an argument on top of that, that's because you're triggered. Ask yourself, is that what the situation is asking of me right now? Is that what the person is needing of me right now? Can I do better? Can I lean in? Can I listen? Can I try to take on their viewpoint, not to see where I'm standing with this, but to see what they need? And how I can navigate them and help them to see maybe a different perspective, or take on a different solution. It's a conversation. It's not necessarily about you being attacked. And sometimes it's not about being right or wrong. Sometimes it's just about empathy. All right, this is enough for today. I promised you I was going to give away a little bit more about me, a little special for this first 10th episode. All right, I want to tell you a bit about Bliss Republic. The first time I thought about Bliss Republic, I was working in a corporate machine in Switzerland and felt I couldn't bring my whole self to the table. I struggled with how strong my mind was consumed by the company's needs and demands. Becoming a life coach, I figured I could help people to come out of their business minds and reconnect to what really mattered and find their true authenticity. I saw over the years how many people suffered unnecessarily for working a job that pays for the apartment that they live in, where they live to facilitate to go to work, to a job they didn't like working in. And that didn't make any sense to me. So I decided to leave corporate and offer my services to spirit. But my ties to the worldly me, however, pulled me back and forth over the next 10 years. I became a yoga teacher in 2015 and moved to Australia just to find myself yet once more having to go back to corporate to earn my Australian visa, which took me another 5 years. During this time, I went through 2 tumultuous breakups that shifted my karmic energy. I was no longer the same person that I was before. I exposed myself to various healing modalities between psychology, mythology, international spiritual philosophy, somatic practices, and other therapies. Clearing personal karma, generational karma, and cosmic karma, I experienced phenomenons from channeling dead people to having God experiences to floating within the cosmic void. What flatters most people about this description is that I never consumed psychedelics in my entire life. Last year, Spirit decided to move everything out of my life that wasn't in alignment with its path for me. Within 1 year, I lost my job, I lost my home, I lost a meaningful relationship, I lost my grandmother who raised me, and I lost 2 friends to cancer. I went through my darkest hour, where there was nothing left but to reconnect with myself, the child of my ancestors. My peers, dead and alive, came to help me mentally, physically, and mostly spiritually. I opened to the idea that my grandma was now helping from the other side. I decided I need to make a radical change to make this happen. I stopped drinking, started working out again, read more books, leaned into my business, learned who my true friends were, reprogrammed my mind, started a podcast, wrote 2 online trainings, and I won't stop. I let go of anything that wasn't in alignment with the new standard that I have set for myself. I leaned in and became someone worth finding. Today, I'm still living in my van. I started the podcast to help people overcome loneliness, and my goal is to help over 700,000 people to reconnect to themselves, to others, and to spirit in a meaningful way. I help others free their soul, find connection, live authentically, and be in love. I've created 2 online courses that will be live throughout this year. And I offer personal connection coaching sessions with limited space at the moment. My mission is to build characters that have more weight than any title ever will. If you're interested in the connection code, I created an online workshop for all those who wish to alchemize their loneliness seize their time alone, and become someone worth finding. In this workshop, I share my most profound learnings about loneliness. We will unhook you from the programming that keeps you lonely and dive into the joy of reconnecting with yourself. Please reach out if you have any questions about this course. And if you know someone who deals with loneliness, please let them know about this course. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel, as it does help me a lot to continue podcasting. And share any of my episodes with someone who can benefit from it. Thank you. I appreciate you. Bliss and bless. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Have a beautiful day. Bliss and bless.